Bonjour tout le monde, j'espère que vous allez bien. Si vous vous rappelez bien, il y a quelques jours de cela que Donald Trump a dit qu'il allait user de la menace économique pour faire du Canada le 51e État américain. Donc, il voulait faire de nous des Américains, quoi. Des Américains style USA. Mais plus de Canada, mais USA et Canada seraient comme une 51e État. Vous avez sûrement vu cet extrait.
It crystal clear. He is not joking about Canada becoming the 51st state.
Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like, and it would also be much better for national security.
While admitting he has no right to do it, he said he'd use economic force to merge the countries, voicing his frustrations over U.S. defense spending and how much it costs to help protect Canada, while also making exaggerated complaints about the trade deficit.
Supporting a country, $200 billion plus a year, our military is at their disposal, all of these other things. They should be a state. That's why I told Trudeau when he came down. And I said, that's okay to have if you're a state. But if you're another country, we don't want to have it.
Donc, suite à ces propos, il y a eu des journalistes, des panélistes qui se sont prononcés sur la question. On ne peut pas devenir un 51e État américain. Nous n'avons pas les mêmes valeurs que les États-Unis. Sur les réseaux sociaux, même les Canadiens se sont levés pour dire non, nous sommes le Canada, on reste le Canada. Il n'y a aucune question qu'on fasse partie des États-Unis. Et tout le monde aussi attendait un peu la réaction de notre Premier ministre Justin Trudeau et il a décidé de répondre. Donc, Justin Trudeau a répondu dans une longue entrevue accordée à la journaliste américaine Jen Psaki. Dans cette entrevue, il a répondu au président Trump. En fait, il a donné son point de vue sur la question. Il a également abordé des questions sur les minorités, sur l'économie et de son avenir, donc, après sa démission. Donc, je vous laisse regarder ce reportage et dites-moi ce que vous aurez pensé de cela dans les commentaires.
I disagree with my suggestion that it's a fraught relationship, but I think some see it that way. But I think one of the reasons is because Donald Trump is, of course, going to be inaugurated in just over a week from now. He has been pushing this idea of making Canada the 51st state. I know that's not something you've taken too kindly to, but how seriously do you take that threat?
I mean, let's remember, I got to work with President Trump through his first 4 years in office, and we were able to renegotiate the most important trade deal either of us have, which is the Canada-U.S. Free trade deal, in a way that was beneficial to both our countries. And I know that as a successful negotiator, he likes to keep people a little off balance. The 51st state, that's not going to happen. It's just a non-starter. Canadians are incredibly proud of being Canadian, but people are now talking about that as opposed to talking about, for example, what the impact of 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum coming into the United States, on energy, whether it's oil and gas or electricity. I mean, no American wants to pay 25% more for electricity or oil and gas coming in from Canada. And that's something that I think people need to pay a little more attention to, and perhaps the idea of a 51st state is distracting a little bit from a very real question that will increase the cost of living for Americans and harm a trading relationship that works extremely well.
It's not just Canada. He's talking about taking over Greenland and the Panama Canal, in addition to annexing Canada through economic force, as he said. Do you think is this bullying? Is it trolling? Or should we not take seriously his expansionist desires?
No. I think we definitely need to take that seriously. I think from my very first conversations with him way back in 2016, he told me how much he admires Canada, how much he appreciates and likes us. So I think there is a certain amount of flattery in this, that he thinks that we are as great as we are. He's right. We are great. We're also very, very proud of being Canadian. If you talk to any Canadian, you ask them to define what it is to be a Canadian, they'll talk about all sorts of different things. But one of the things we will point out is, and we're not Americans.
I mean, he's been calling you the 51st governor. Do you take that as a compliment? Does that not bother you at all? How do you feel about that?
I've been in politics an awfully long time. I tend to focus on the substantive things and not on, people choosing nicknames for me. I mean, if I was that thin-skinned, I probably wouldn't last that long in politics.
That is fair. You did make a trip down to Mar-a-Lago, and you did meet with the former and future president. What was that like? Tell me about that conversation.
It was nice to reconnect with him. Obviously, we had some good conversations about what we were going to be able to do together. He very clearly expressed what he had talked about in his tweet a few days before, that he has concerns about the border between Canada and the United States, particularly around migration and around fentanyl. I was pleased to highlight that less than 1% of the illegal migrants, less than 1% of the fentanyl that comes into the United States comes from Canada. So we're not a problem, but we're happy to, and we've actually responded to his request for us to do more with billions of dollars worth of investments to even further strengthen the security at our borders.
I'm assuming he didn't bring up his intention to publicly say he was going to annex through economic means your country.
It actually sort of came up at one point, and then we started musing back and forth about this. And when I started to suggest, well, maybe there could be a trade for Vermont or California for certain parts, he immediately decided that it was not that funny anymore, and we moved on to a different conversation. So this isn't out of the blue that he's doing this, but my focus has to be not on something that he's talking about that will not ever happen, but more on something that might well happen, that if he does choose to go forward with tariffs that raise the cost of just about everything for American citizens, that on top of that, we're going to have a robust response to that.
I want to ask you about your decision to resign, but you're staying on until the party elects a new leader sometime in March, but between now and then, the parliament is suspended. So for the American public, for others watching right now who are trying to understand what levers you have if he isn't listening to this rational argument, what are you prepared to do if he actually does this into the first couple weeks of his presidency?
As we did last time, we are ready to respond with tariffs as necessary. You may remember when Donald Trump put tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, which did nothing but raise the cost of steel and aluminum for American consumers. We responded by putting tariffs on things like bourbon, Harley Davidsons, orange juice, playing cards, these sorts of things that Canadians could find replacements for, so they wouldn't have to pay more for that money. And it ended up causing a lot of loss in American businesses for whom Canada is their #1 export partner. We are the #1 export partner of about 35 different U.S. states, and anything that thickens the border between us ends up costing American citizens and American jobs. That's not what President Trump got elected to do. I know he got elected to try and make life easier for all Americans, to support American workers. These are things that are going to hurt them.
Let me ask you about your decision to resign more broadly. And you've obviously talked publicly about this, but there are trends around the world that we've seen here in the United States. We've seen them across Europe. Obviously, you've been impacted by them. We're incumbents. It's an anti-incumbency movement around the world.
Yeah.
You also said when you resigned that you wanted to give your party a chance to win. So I think from your perspective, I'm wondering, is it more of a global trend issue in terms of where your approval ratings are now, which is the lowest they've been in your nearly 10 years? Or is it a you issue, as people should understand it?
Well, I think it's probably a bit of everything. I mean, right now there's a political cycle where incumbents, particularly those who steered us through COVID, I mean, Canada did extraordinarily well through COVID, better than just about every other peer, tens of thousands fewer deaths proportionally than our friends and allies around the world. Inflation hit less hard. Our economy bounced back faster. It was good, but there is still a lingering frustration towards incumbents. And for me, where I lean in on is all the good things we were able to do. We've put forward policies that are going to make a difference for decades to come in Canada. And I think right now we're seeing a time in politics where emotions and social media is carrying an awful lot of weight in how people feel about things. But I'm always going to lean back on what are the substantive things that are being done? What are the substantive measures that make a big difference in people's lives? And standing up for the vulnerable, supporting people who need it, building an economy that works for the middle class. These are things that ultimately make the biggest difference in people's lives.
One of the challenges or the things the Democratic Party here in the United States has been grappling with post-election is this critique that they're out of touch with the public. And that's one of the critiques of the Liberal Party in Canada as well. You've obviously made a decision to resign. Are there any lessons that can be learned from your time and what you've experienced for people here in the United States, Democratic Party?
One of the things that progressives, whether they're Liberals or Democrats on either side of the border, need to remain focused on is cost of living and the economy. We're projected to have the fastest growing economy in the G7, even faster than the United States next year. These are things that we did because we made sure that there were fewer barriers for minorities and women and vulnerable people to participate in the workforce. That's an economic narrative. That's understanding that you do better when everyone has a chance to contribute fully. But you can easily turn that into a woke argument that says, oh, you're just, working for minorities and women and you're not taking care of the economy. Well, the capacity of the political right and, quite frankly, social media to gin up that kind of dynamic and fall into culture wars and divisions that actually don't stand up to the hard economic truth of the growth we've been able to create in Canada is part of the challenge we have. And that's part of the challenge we're facing as a world right now, where people are very much in a place where affordability, where reasonable answers, where medium and long-term policies aren't what they want to hear about. They want things to get better right away. And you do have people promising to make things better right away, which is very attractive sometimes, even if the ability to do that isn't always clear.
Before I let you go, you've been the Prime Minister for nearly 10 years. It's going to be a strange adjustment, I assume. What are you most looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to resting, to taking a bit of a break, to, it's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason, spending more time with my kids. My kids have, my two older kids have about a year and a half left in high school before they go off to university. The idea of being there for them as an active dad, making lunches and home when they get home from school is something that's really, really exciting to me. That I got into politics because I have kids, not in spite of my kids. I want to serve and build a better world. I think we did some really big things over these almost 10 years. Now it's time to be able to focus on ourselves as a family.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, it was a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much.